Hey guys, welcome back. This is Sub LBC here, doing another video update as we continue on with our BMW X5 E70 maintenance series. And again, just to kind of clarify for all the people that are kind of curious as to why this channel is seeing such a weird change in subject matter. But as I had mentioned before, this is really just a little video series that I want to do to just kind of give back to the community, because without people on YouTube, I would not have been able to get as far with this car as I have in terms of like doing my own maintenance and switching out parts and stuff of that nature. Because if you've never done it before, you get kind of worried that you might do something wrong and like destroy your car. And people on YouTube have been so helpful just to like show step-by-step procedurals on how to do some really important work that obviously will keep you on top of the maintenance of your car, keep your car going, but will save you hundreds if not thousands of dollars in the process. So with jobs like this, obviously it's a very, very cheap job to do, and it is a very simple job, at least theoretically, but it is not an easy job. And there are some things you're going to have and some things you're going to have to do in order to do the transfer case fluid change. Now, with this video specifically, this one's really important because I've seen some videos out there, guys, where people are just doing some insane things in order to get access to this drain fill plug. So you can see that it's way up there, right next to the black tube. And I'll talk about that black tube here a little bit later. But yeah, that's the 14 millimeter hex, which is the same kind of cap that you will use for the rear differential as well as for the front differentials. So they're all the same size and all identical as far as I know. But as you can see, though, they've put it in like the most precarious place ever. Just look at that skinny little, just to give you some idea, this is, not even 2 fingers of width available to get up there. And it's, it's kind of up there, you know what I'm saying? Now, I have seen some videos where people will like undo, these bolts and all that and literally remove this entire cross member just to get access to that drain fill plug. And that's a huge job, guys. Like, you have to take off all these extra covers, and you're removing a major support piece for the car, and that can just lead to a lot of problems, you know what I'm saying? And it's just not necessary. So in this video, we're going to walk you through the process on exactly how you're going to go ahead and deal with this. So first things first is that you are going to have either like ramps or jack stands, or at the very least just a single jack. And I think having a single jack is going to make the job kind of difficult, but it is technically possible. But if you really want to do it right, yeah, jack stands are preferred because they can get a little taller than ramps. Unless you have those ramps that have integrated jacks, which I've seen that are really cool. You basically just park them on the ramps and then jack up the car. And that'll give you enough, working space here just to be able to, see what you're doing. Because even if you are lucky enough to have the body of a 7 or 8-year-old child, you're still really not going to have enough room to even really get your arms in front of your face because of how low this car is. So again, make sure you get your jack instead of jack stands so you can get the car high up off the ground, and also, if you can, to maintain the levelness of the car. You want to make sure it's level so that way you've got the right amount of fluid in the transfer case. So obviously the first deal is to get this nut out, okay? And that is just, again, it's way up there. It's difficult to see kind of on camera, but trust me, when you see it in real life, you're going to be like, oh my God. Because I remember when I first got into it, I thought I was going to be able to get, certain tools in there, and it just was not a possibility. Now, like I had mentioned in the differential video, I just keep hitting my light. Again, guys, there's just so little space to work with in here. It's wild. Oh my God. I do apologize. My light is not flat. It's like a round light, so it just wants to roll. Okay, there we go. So first things first, guys. I had shown my hex nut or hex key. Let me zoom out here. Yeah, I think we're just gonna stay in this fisheye. But yeah, the reason why I bought this thing was not really to use it to break the caps, but what I really wanted it for was to shave a little bit of this off the bottom in order to create this little tool. Okay, so basically this is like a custom job, and you are probably going to need to find like a specialty hardware store that first will sell a hex key this large, and then have the tools on hand like in a little mini workshop to go ahead and cut it to length. And the way you want to go about cutting this to length is to first get the kind of wrench you're going to need to get access to this thing in this tight little space. And what I like to use here is this ratcheting wrench. So yeah, this is a 14 millimeter ratcheting wrench. And of course, it's got a claw grip on the other side as well. And, this will work as well. But if you only have this, you're going to have to like reach in there, break it, disengage, re-engage. And all the while you're doing that, re-engagement, you run the risk of having this little deal fall out on you. So then you got to put it back in there, redo. I mean, it's really, really a pain in the butt, guys. And, simply getting a box wrench alone is not going to solve the problem, because that also is going to have to be removed and re-engaged constantly. So, do yourself a favor and just grab yourself the ratcheting wrench. And crazily enough, like right now at Lowe's, dude, they're like running a clearance on Craftsman tools, which include ratcheting wrenches. And I actually bought a 15/16 ratcheting wrench just like this one for like $5, which is insane. And I'm pretty sure they had ones of that size that were also $5. And I was just like, oh my God, I could have built, a whole setup. They got all kinds of stuff, like all these dollar attachments, all the Craftsman stuff. But yeah, it was pretty wild. But anyways, when I was getting my tool made, the first thing I did is, I just came out to my car real quick, stuck the hex key into my rear differential cap. And then from there, put the wrench there, and then had like a little marking pencil to mark. So that way it'll go into the hole. You can see it. It'll go into the hole and have just enough meat on the outside to fully engage with my ratcheting wrench, while at the same time being able to squeeze into this little amount of space that you have here to get in there. Because look how skinny that is, guys. You have literally, I mean, right there, I mean, that's like what, 10, 12 millimeters of play, maybe a little more. I mean, that's really tight, but you want it to be perfect, because it's going to make, getting to that nut just so much easier. Now, once you go ahead and break that thing open, now you're going to have to figure out how to drain this thing. And this is where things get interesting. So you can see here that I've run this tube in advance just to kind of show you the pathway. So in order to get this here, you have to fish it from the back of this cross member. And let me get some light on there for you. So yeah, that's the spot that you want to fish it in through. And then you want to get that line over the cross member. And then you want to get it right back into the drain plug, which you guys can clearly see here. Let me get the light again. Oh my God, there's so little space, guys. Like, if you're claustrophobic, this is probably not the job for you. Oh my Lord. But yeah, right there is the path. Now with the fluid transfer kit, which is again right here, this is the one that I got over at Harbor Freight. You can try to get the orange tubes over the cross member, and for filling, I think that's a good idea. But for draining, it simply is not, because once you get that orange tube over the cross member, there is really no way to get that orange tube to get into a downward type orientation. And in my differential video, I showed that we had that 3/8 inch 90-degree barb, which was perfect. But in the case of the rear differential, you have full frontal access to the cap and the fill hole, so it's really easy just to get it in there and set it up the way it needs to be. But you are not going to have that amount of space here. It just isn't going to work. And believe me, guys, I have tried. It's just not possible. So when it comes to doing the extraction, you are going to have to go with the downsizer and run the 1/4 inch. And the real strategy here is to, get it in there, get your pump going, extract. But then you pretty much want to start, behaving like, what was his name? Daniel from There Will Be Blood. You want to get in there and be like, like an oil driller. I drink your milkshake, just like pushing it in, extracting it, twisting it, looking for all the different angles you can to just get as much fluid out of the transfer case as possible. And as always, when it comes time to refill, you're going to have the good old red line 7590, which is the exact same fluid that we used for the rear differential, but is different from the fluid though that we would be using for the front. Front, we're going to be running 7585. But in any case, guys, yeah, you want to go at it for a long time. Like, really, guys, just go at it. Constantly working as hard as you can to suck as much of the fluid out of the transfer case. And at some point, with enough twisting and prodding and using your 2 fingers there to keep manipulating it, eventually you will find some pretty good downward angles that will get you pretty much to the base of the transfer case, and then you can get all that fluid out. And after a while, obviously, you're just going to be sucking air, you know what I mean? And then you'll just be like, okay, you get as enough as you can, and then you go ahead and pull your black tube out of the way, clean things up a little bit, and then go ahead and get your pump all drained out, clean up all your lines, and then go ahead and grab the orange hose And then again, using this same pathway, insert that. And this is going to be a lot more difficult, though, unfortunately, for you guys, because the orange tube is a lot more flexible. It's not as rigid, so it's going to be difficult. But you will, with work, get it over this cross member, following that same pathway to get you to the drain fill hole, and then you go ahead and slip it in there, okay? And try to get it in there as deep as you can. You're not going to be able to go that deep because there's a lot of gearing in there. And again, that tube's not going to want to go down, but it should get in there enough to where it's pretty steady. And then again, making sure your car is level. Go ahead and get your fluid transfer set up with your fluid, and then start filling and filling and filling. And again, the same rules apply with the rear differential. As you get towards the tail end of the quart, you're going to get a little worried. You're like, oh no, I'm going to run out before I filled up. But right as that's happening, you're going to start getting your slow weep and your drip. And if you see that right as you're running out of fluid, then you know that you've done an absolute perfect job. However, if you start pumping and you're not even barely halfway done, or maybe just a little bit past the halfway point, and it's already gushing fluid out of the transfer case, then you know that you did not extract enough fluid initially, and you're probably gonna have to buy another quart, re-extract, or maybe just say, hey, maybe you're happy with just doing like a 50% fluid flush, and it is an improvement. It's not bad, but look, if you're gonna go through all this trouble to make custom tools and attachments to get this thing, you might as well do the job right. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely make sure you extract as much as possible, and if you've done it correctly, you should, right as you're getting to the tail end of the quart, start seeing weeping and dripping. And then as long as it's not seeping out too quickly, then you can go ahead and put your cap back on. Now, again, there is a specific torque spec to do this, but good luck getting a torque wrench in there. I don't even see how that's possible. So again, just flip your ratcheting wrench using your little attachment, tighten it up real good, but not so insane to where it's going to be a problem to get off in the future, because again, this is not a very accessible area, and you're not going to want to mess around, when it comes time to do this job again. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's pretty much that. Once you're satisfied, and, again, inspect your O-ring and maybe even buy a brand new cap, because they're not very expensive if you want to do this job. And then that's it, guys. Seal it up, get the car off the stands or off the ramps, off the jack, whatever. And then you're good to go, man. Drive away and you are good for another 50,000 miles. So, yeah, guys, that is pretty much it for this video update. The only thing I really want to say here in conclusion is just to, give a little message here to the BMW engineers. And it's like, dude, for the love of God, can you guys please just install a drain plug on this thing? It's just, it's really lame, guys. We've seen past the scam. We know that, lifetime fluid on these things is, a completely absurd proposition. So in the future, just please give us a drain plug. That's really the only thing that I ask. It's not the hugest deal on the rear differential, but, for the transfer case, this is a tough job. Again, very simple, just not easy. But if you have the right tools, you can definitely make it a lot easier. So as always, guys, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you all next time.